was a Sunday bombshell. President Trump joined NBC's Meet the Press to speak with Kristen Welker, and he made some important admissions about a variety of topics. Trump touched on everything from the economy to immigration and foreign policy. He even hinted at who his possible successor could be. Let's take a look.
It's far too early to say that, but I do have a vice president, and typically it would be, and JD's doing a fantastic job.
He would be at the top of the list?
It could very well be. I don't want to get involved in that. I think he's a fantastic, brilliant guy. Marco is great. There's a lot of them that are great.
Trump also spoke on Greenland, suggesting that he might take the island nation by, quote, force, saying the U.S. needs it, quote, very badly. Welker also asked Trump about the Constitution, and the president had a pretty wild response. Let's take a look.
Don't you need to uphold the Constitution of the United States as president?
I don't know. I have to respond by saying again, I have brilliant lawyers that work for me, and they are going to obviously follow what the Supreme Court said.
Trump had a lot more to say. Let's break this down. So, what did you make of Trump's comments over the weekend?
I think this was a masterclass in deflection and confusion. I mean, you are the leader of the entire country. You say you need to ask a lawyer about whether you should follow a basic principle of governing, which is following our Constitution. Listening to the Supreme Court when they rule on things like, bringing Abrego Garcia home. Some of the things that he was talking about, just going and taking Greenland. I think like the conversations that were being had, blaming Biden for everything. I mean, where do you want to start? There was so much in there that I think was not a really good, you have to uphold the law even when it's inconvenient. And that's what I think Trump is not articulating properly.
But no, what he said, he did say very clearly in that interview, we will follow what the Supreme Court says. He said that now a couple times. There is no...
The Supreme Court told him to bring home Abrego Garcia.
Told him to facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia. And what his point is, his lawyers are going over what that actually means. This involves diplomacy and negotiations with another government. The Supreme Court is not dictating the entire foreign policy of the U.S. with respect to El Salvador. Did the Supreme Court said you have to invade El Salvador? We're talking about invading Greenland. Did they say you have to invade El Salvador to kidnap this man, who, by the way, is a citizen of El Salvador, back into Maryland for some reason? No, they said facilitate his return. So they're discussing with the government of El Salvador, and maybe they'll be able to do it, and maybe they won't. I think it's fair to say that Trump is trying to wiggle out of trying to do that, but he did not say the Supreme Court told me to do this and I refuse to do it. He said we are complying with the Supreme Court. There is some ambiguity over what facilitate means, and that's what he was alluding to, his lawyers discussing it.
I mean, even Marco Rubio has said that, due process is something that we must follow.
Of course it is.
He needs to understand that there's a whole due process. He also mentioned in this interview that, there's millions of people. I think he's referring to migrants that come here. We can't possibly do due process for all these people. I think it's important to understand that that's what we're built on. Like, you can't question the fabric and the foundation of our country and then expect us to stand, right? That's the foundation that we're built on. And so I think that is the biggest problem for me when somebody who is the top in command at the very least should just say yes to these simple questions that Kristen Welker was asking. Yes.
Yes.
There shouldn't be any ambiguity there.
There should not be ambiguity about whether people deserve due process. Of course they do. And in fact, in order to deport people, we need to make there needs to be a process. Due process is not like some magic kind of thing where you sprinkle due process powder on someone and now they've been transformed. It just means we need a judicial system to make determinations about what rights is this person afforded. This is important. Are they an American citizen? We don't want to deport anyone who's an American citizen. What are they accused of? What is the reason for concentrating on this person? Because the conservatives are right that there are so many illegal immigrants here. It is not if it's just we're going to try to deport them all. It is not feasible to do that if you have to follow due process, and I agree, you should have to follow due process. That means the administration should prioritize the deportation of people who are gang affiliated or accused of other crimes, and that's what they should focus on. Kilmar Abrego Garcia satisfies that criteria. The government has been persuaded that he is a member of a gang. There has been, or was a member of a gang. There's been plenty of evidence put forth to suggest that. It was persuasive to the court in 2019, and he has been deported on that basis. Yes, he was deported incorrectly to a country that a judge said he should not be deported to. But that's it. I come back to the point. He is a citizen of El Salvador. What right do we have to kidnap this person back into our country?
Well, he lived here, and that's what I'm saying
But he's
about
a citizen of El Salvador.
I know, but the due process part is the fact that if you said it was a wrongful deportation, then you need to figure out how to bring him back and figure out the right process to go through. That's the organization that the Supreme Court has requested that you facilitate. And so,
well, they requested that's what we're doing. But you see,
no, he's not doing it. He said he's not. He didn't say he's not. He said that he's leaving it up to other people. But he was requested to facilitate the return. He is the commander in chief. He can make this happen just like every other executive order that he signed in the last 100 some odd days. I think there's a lot to talk about here, though.
I just don't understand why this guy is the hill to die on. But go ahead.
Well, I think there was a lot of deflection in general. So that's obviously problematic because putting cracks in our foundation, I told you why that bothers me. But also just being detached from reality, like saying that strollers are not really that relevant when it comes to economics and why people are complaining too much about the cost going up slightly for strollers. I mean, as a mom, that's not something that you can dismiss. That's a huge deal for carrying around this new baby.
Yeah,
and also blaming Biden for the entire economy failure. I mean, imagine if you bought a car this year and you've been driving it 4 months, but then you get in an accident and blame the former owner. What is that? That's what Trump is doing about the economy still. The same man who ran on changing it immediately and effectively, and it actually is not great right now. People are complaining about tariffs. He talked about having conversations with China in this interview. China saying they're not having these conversations. Nobody knows what's happening with the economy. So I don't think that he has a lot to stand on. I mean, I'm happy that he did the interview because it was a great detailed interview, but there's a lot of deflection in there. People are looking for real answers. Like, what's the strategy?
Yeah, I just tell it like it is, or I say what I think. I don't really agree with Trump's defense of the tariffs. I think it is very hard to defend him on this grounds because he frequently increasingly he makes it sound like he just doesn't understand trade on the most basic level because he keeps talking about how, well, we're not doing any trade with them anymore, so that's money we're saving because we're keeping all this money. And I'm like, okay, but money has no inherent value unless you can trade it for something, right? They have things and they want to exchange their things for our money, and we have money and we want things. And so that's what happens. Like if I go to Home Depot and I buy a hammer, and it costs like $25, now I'm $25 less rich, but I have the hammer, which is what I wanted in exchange for the money. And
very good
Trump
breakdown.
is this is pretty basic. Like just having a stockpile of money does not, you have to exchange it for things. That's what we're doing here. That's what the purpose of the financial system is. And Trump is now very frequently making comments about trade in general, where he views all exchanges as a loss. If you're giving up money, that's making you not as wealthy. And following that to its logical conclusion, well, then you should not engage in commerce whatsoever.
At all, yeah.
And then we're just getting into some kind of like actually very far left autarky where you have to grow your own food.
That's
and,
not a bad thing.
Assemble your own food. Utensils. Well, but then you have to build your own
Everything.
Farming equipment to make your own food, and you have to. I mean, it's like literally impossible. I mean, we can all be more self-reliant, I guess, but you have to build your own chairs and your own house and your own every single thing involves exchanging money for something you need to make your life a little bit easier. So I don't think the way Trump is talking about that is going to be successful in the long run.
I don't.
It's hard.
We can agree there, and
stomach.
I think the third term. I'm glad he kind of put that to bed, but I also don't think he put it to bed in the correct way. He didn't specifically say I won't run it. He's selling Trump 2028 hats on his website, which we all have seen. So I'm not really sure that he's doing what will be. The
so he knows
admirable
commerce
thing.
is good on some level, right? Because
well, this is for the
he
fans.
has Trump
This is for the fans
2028
again.
hats, and let's say I want a Trump 2028 hat. So now he has my money, and I have the Trump 2028 hat. And I'm, happier, and he's happier, and that's commerce, so that's good.
So he gets it.
He gets
so
it
maybe
on
you
that
should be on his team, and we can get this situated.
When it comes
quickly.
to Trump merchandise, he understands economics there. All right, next up on Rising, there is some backlash against a bill that would punish international government organizations for boycotting Israel. Backlash from the right. We'll talk about it.